In the last video, we talked about the whole idea of social Darwinism, the idea of these huge business tycoons and monopolies, and they were like, well, of course, we're smarter, we're more fit, that we do what's best for our race, our humankind. And so they're developing these huge businesses, and there were all these opportunities that were not available to people living, especially in Europe. So they started looking to America, and because of political situations in Europe, competition in Europe politically, a lot of unstable governments, a lot of persecution of different people groups, people said, well, let's go to America. There we have some opportunity. So hundreds of thousands of poor immigrants are coming over, and they're packed onto these boats, and they arrive, they don't know the language, most of them are penniless, and they are here to build a new life for themselves and their families in America. Here is what immigration looked like in the United States. And between 1871 and 1880, if you look at the red is an indication of the old countries they used to come from. And they mostly came from England. Before that was with the Irish potato famine. We had a lot of Irish before here. But mostly from England and Germany. And you had very few immigrating from the new areas of immigration. Southern Europe, which is Italy, Russia. Southern Europe, which includes Italy, and then from Russia and Poland. There was a lot of political turnover in Russia and Poland, especially, and we'll get to that. And here in 1881, you have even more coming from England and Germany. And Germany now is becoming the Austrian Empire, and there's a lot of political change there. And you have more, though, quite a jump in the people in the new countries that were coming over. And by 1891, Southern Europeans, people from Russia, people from Poland, and in Eastern Europe, they're pouring in to the United States. And between 1900 and 1910, and really going down to 1915, it was mostly many Southern Europeans, and a lot of people from Eastern Europe, Russia. And so we have, you can see in the millions, well here, in just about 10 years, close to 6 million people are coming. Where are we going to put them? They don't know the language. How do they assimilate? And assimilate means how do they learn to fit into the culture in America? And so here we have millions within these periods of immigrants coming into the United States. Well, many of them were poor, and so it's the whole idea of you are less than in the approach to society of social Darwinism. The results of immigration, now they love the immigrants coming because they provided an inexpensive workforce. These people came, many of them had no money, so they were willing to take any job, and it was not unusual for the kids starting at age 5 and 6, some even younger in some of the textile mills, to work all day, help make things at home, help produce to help the family survive. They also came the customers who in return bought the items produced. So they're making these items, they make some money, and now they're buying the items. So they're really supporting their bosses and their industry. Now, they lived in horrible conditions. They're pouring into these cities, they're pouring into where the factories are. And they lived in tenements. And when we think of the word ghetto, it has a very different meaning for us today. Ghetto was a term that was used, that was identified with Jews throughout history, when they were separated and persecuted. And so living in these tenements and these bad homes. And now, these kind of conditions are being applied to the immigrants. And so you would have a family of 8, 9, 10 living in 1 or 2 rooms. there would be a bathroom at the end of the hall, or at the end, two halls had to share one. Kitchens would be at the end, so each apartment did not have its own kitchen. And so there was a lot of communal living in these. Here is another one of the tenements, how packed they are into there. And there were no dryers back then. Didn't exist. And so the only way you could dry your clothes is you hung them out to dry. So this was typical. This is a picture from the New York tenements. The living conditions within these tenements and these buildings. You would have the public stairwell, and you would have the bathrooms, and then you would have a parlor, living room, bedroom, and these were the individual apartments. So, and it was this dumbbell shape. So in the center, you would walk in and go up the stairwell through the center. So, we're looked at a lot of things with, and this is a very fast, quick unit, and we're looking at a lot of things through here. What happened after the Civil War? People moved out west due to the Homestead Act, better transportation, the trains, moved people, raw materials, moved ideas. It's a period of tons of inventions and innovations and new ways to do things. New factories were built. People left the farms, began to move to the cities for the factory jobs. They thought it was a more consistent pay, more reliable, more sustainable. You weren't dependent on the weather, you weren't dependent on drought or anything like that. And millions of immigrants came seeking for opportunities. So in these few years, there's a lot of change, a lot of flux. And yet this leads to something very, kind of leads us into the 20th century and the century of conflict.